Okay, this is going to talk about the energy and chemistry. So we're going to talk about chapter 7, and I'm going to tell you what the important part of chapter 7 are. It's a pretty long chapter, and there's lots in it, but let me tell you the highlights of chapter 7. So as we go through chapter 7, they're going to talk to you about energy and units of energy and the law of conservation of mass. So we need to be able to use joules and calories and be able to use those interchangeably. So make sure you understand joules and calories. They're units of energy. And understand the law of conservation of energy as well. Then we're going to talk about work and definition of work and how heat and work are related to each other. So look through that. And then a big part of what we're going to talk about in this chapter is this equation. Q stands for heat, M is going to be mass in grams, C is a constant, so lots of times we have C's or K's in chemistry and they are just a number. We have to find the right number and use the right number. And then we're going to have something called delta T, which is a change in temperature. And so it depends on what constant you're using, what kind of temperature units you're using. So you might be in Kelvin or degrees C, or usually those two for chemistry. So you make sure you're using the right units based on the specific heat that you're given. You're going to have some problems, so try those. These are important because I put these on quizzes and tests, the specific heat problems. And these are those constants I was telling you about. So these are something we have to use in the problems that we use and when we do these kind of lab experiments and we use those specific heats. Try all these problems, try as many as you can so that you can get really familiar with it. And then we're going to talk about enthalpy, which is used in chemical reactions. And so that's going to be this symbol is going to be used for enthalpy changes. It's an energy that we're going to talk about in a chemical reaction. And we're going to use that enthalpy with a value in joules or calories. And it's going to be based on what happens when we do a chemical reaction, how much energy is released or absorbed in that chemical reaction. So make sure you understand the sign. Positive is going to be endothermic. Negative values for delta H are exothermic. Exothermic means heat's released in that reaction. Endothermic means energy is taken in during the reaction. So make sure you understand those and have that in your mind. And then often in chemistry you're going to use something called a calorimeter to measure this energy change in a reaction. So understand how this calorimeter works. And then we're going to get to the next section, which is stoichiometry using enthalpy. So here we go again, stoichiometry, moles, that was chapter 5, and then we're going to use that now to figure out heat values for a reaction. So we're going to have a balanced equation, and then we're going to figure out the enthalpy that happens based on that balanced reaction. So make sure you can balance equations, chemical reactions, and then we can use the heat now to figure out how much heat is given off during reaction. So try these problems. And here's some exercises to try out, see if you can do it. And then this is probably the hardest part, is Hess's law. It's kind of like a working puzzle. So we're going to figure out, we're going to find a chemical reaction's energy based on other reactions that we can use together to figure out a final reaction. If we can't do the experiment in the lab, we can use something called Hess's law to give us an idea of what the energy should be when we do it in the lab. So Hess's law is kind of like a predictor of how much energy you would get released or taken in. And so it's helpful for chemists to do before they actually do a chemical reaction to see how much energy is involved. and whether they have the right equipment to do their lab based on the energy requirements. So that's called Hess's law. It's kind of like working a puzzle, so we'll talk about that later. But please read through that and get familiar with it. And this will take us a while to get used to. So Hess's law is kind of intense. And then we're going to talk about formation reactions, which just means we're forming a product. And we'll talk about the energy that's involved in that as well. So look at these problems, try them out, and then when we do these kind of formation problems, we're going to get a delta H of forming that product. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to have lots of energies, and they're going to be given different names. So don't let that bother you. Just read through that. We're going to use this table of constants here to figure out an overall reaction. So we're going to use this table a lot to figure out an overall reaction based on information about energies of a particular compound. So look at the examples, try them out. Here's an application in real life. So try these answers, and then here's where the homework's going to be. So try this. This is where you're going to look for your homework for Chapter 7. Okay, I hope that was a good introduction, and we'll talk about it more together. See you soon. Bye-bye.